clock on the wall.
Removing barriers.
Oh, now it's 9:01, my apologies.
You're late.
We're late, so call this meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oops, I'm sorry, I kicked you in your chair. I'll now turn it over to Mayor Shamrow. They have a ceremony.
Yep, we always acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land through the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Bonnie's way over there.
Ready?
Yes, please, roll call.
Roll call for the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners. Walter?
Here.
Spence? Here. Nelson?
Here.
Morris?
Here.
McAllister?
Here.
Henschel?
I'm here.
Flynn?
Here.
Andrews?
Here.
Seifert?
Here.
And roll call for the City of Traverse City. Treadwell,
Here.
Shaw,
Here.
Werner,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
Shamrow,
Here.
and I reflect that Wilson and Stanley are absent.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Moving right along. First public comment. Bonnie, the rules, if you please.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board may state his or her name and township or district. Providing a specific address is not recommended. Persons may address the board on matters or issues which are relevant and germane to county government as determined by the chairperson. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, allow an additional opportunity or time to speak if determined germane and necessary to the discussion. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment may be received during the meeting when a specific agenda topic is scheduled for discussion by the board. Prior to the first public comment, the chairperson will indicate the topics on the agenda for which public comment will be accepted. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson. The board shall not comment or respond to a person who is addressing the board. Silence or non-response from the board should not be interpreted as disinterest or disagreement by the board. Please be respectful and refrain from personal or political attacks.
Before you get started, Justin, Mayor Shamrow reminded me that we do this a little differently than the city. We're going to use county rules where this is your chance to comment. We're not going to do it for each and every topic. But you can forego putting your hand in the air. If you have something to say, please line up behind Justin. Justin, if you please. Thank you for waiting.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Justin Reed, Traverse City resident. Thanking county commissioners. I'd like to point out a few things that I've said since February of this year, and issues I have seen with the knee-jerk reaction when a Record Eagle article comes out blaming the board of directors of ongoing issues with Northern Lakes community mental health due to finances. Instead, the board of directors has lost their way, and it has been diluted so much so when creating these subcommittees, it has distracted to a point that main work on dealing with a budget shortfall of an estimated $12 million, according to the Record Eagle article as of May 8th. A concern with the current leadership has no plan. Instead, the main focus has been on the CEO search. The April 17th meeting was good. However, this should have been implemented early. Nate Gallagher seems to know more than the person assigned to the board of directors. I've said more than once on occasion the worst outcome is, as NMRE CEO Eric Kurtz has said, if the Northern Lakes Community Mental Health has not enough money in the general fund, Northern Lakes Community Mental Health will need to get it from the counties. And this is I believe this was in the April meeting, April or February. But, the worst case scenario is that the CMH Northern Lakes does not have enough of a general fund to for NMRA to recoup the $12 million, up to $12 million. So if Northern Lakes Community Mental Health doesn't have that $12 million, it comes out of the counties. And I'm very reluctant to, hopefully that doesn't happen, but it could. And for all of the issues and everything else, it has been exaggerated, especially with all these subcommittees that are in Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. Instead of having more meetings with the board itself, the board of directors, it kind of seems like it's been hesitant and it's not much of a priority. And the fact that, you know, taking time, it being very important, enough to go ahead and have us, you know, a closed sessions and maybe special meetings to go ahead to facilitate a better outcome. Instead of having the Record Eagle put something out and then, well, you know, that's time to go ahead and, I don't know, be more reaction for anything that happens on CMH. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Anybody else for public comment? Now's the time. Going once, going twice. Public comment is over. All right, thank you, everyone. So for approval agenda, to our guest, the city, you can go first.
All right, well, we don't have anything to pull, so I guess somebody like to make the motion? We don't usually do a motion to approve the agenda. We
do.
We do a consent calendar, and then the agenda is approved unless there's an objection. So, but we can.
should hang out at
I
the
feel like
meetings more often.
I feel like my people are very capable of putting forth a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson.
All right, so have a vote. Is that a roll call vote, Rob?
Nope.
Thanks.
Voice.
Okay.
I'm glad I can see you very well today. I appreciate you. All right, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say perfect.
Okay.
Motion passes. So, discussion.
Mr. Chairman, we should probably have a mover and seconder on the minutes for our board as well.
All right. I make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. There we go. Nope. Do we have to vote again, Bonnie? All right. For the county people, because we're new here.
Not us.
All those favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Fantastic, thank you. Now, back to the discussion. Mr. Alger, want to tee this up, or Mr. Forsyth?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much for all of you taking time to be here today. This is our first step towards what we see administratively as what do we look like for the next 50 years. And while the County Board of Commissioners has heard quite a bit about this, the FMP, the Facilities Master Plan, and we've been working through our first Project Alpha, or our first facilities project up on Lafreniere. We recognize that we need to have this discussion with the city because largely this building, this campus is something that we need to discuss together. Shared visions, what does our future look like together as a city and county, shared facilities, how do we manage those facilities. And this is not a new conversation about the shared facilities. Both commissions have passed the lease agreements for 520 West Front Street and 851 Woodmere. So we're starting to unravel some of those issues of joint ownership. The biggest building that we own together is this building. We are, in fact, 50% owners of this facility. We share occupancy based on 76 and 24%, respectively, and it's governed by a building committee. That building committee is the mayor, the city manager, the chairman of the board for the county, and the county administrator for the county. That group met a couple months ago. I'm looking to the mayor and the chair. We wanted to have this discussion soon so that we could begin to formulate ideas about the next steps, both for the county and for the city. So Mr. Forsyth has been running the FMP process as well as Project Alpha. Mr. Archer was the Tower Pinkster representative that completed the facilities master plan and the assessment of the facilities, and they're going to take it from here. One thing that we did, I would like to note that we're going to change. We're not going to do the building tour initially. We're going to run through the discussion because that's the most important thing that we need to have today. And after the discussion ends, those that wish to have a facility tour, we've got Ryan here, we've got our staff here, and Jerry Tomsack as well as here from Cunningham Limp. They would love to provide a tour. Any questions for me before Mr. Forsyth takes it?
Anyone? Anyone?
Thank you very
Carry
much.
on.
Thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. Just for the record, my name is Chris Forsyth. I am the Deputy County Administrator. It's great to see the Board of Commissioners and the City Commission together. Went back and looked at our records. Looked like 2018 was the last time there was a joint meeting. It was to discuss the senior center. So great to see everybody here together to talk about a very important issue. I also want to acknowledge Liz Vogel for her help in putting together today's agenda, as well as some of her thoughts and city staff's thoughts on the recommendations, which we'll get to later this morning. So just an overview for the commissioners of what we plan today. As Nate indicated, you'll hear from design architect and planner Ryan Archer with Tower Pinkster. He is here seated to my right. His focus will be on the facilities assessment, which was developed about 2 years ago, 2023. He'll also briefly discuss parts of the facilities master plan, the master plan as related to this building. And then after you hear from Ryan, you're next going to hear from our Parks and Facilities Director, John Chase. And John will describe what has changed between the initial facilities assessment and today, both the positive and the negative. And then as Nate indicated, we'd like to talk about 3 different options to consider, as well as recommended next steps. And then hopefully we can also do a building tour so you can see firsthand some of the challenges and issues we have with this building. So with that, unless there's any questions, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan.
Chris. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for taking the time, getting together. I know it's everyone's taking a little bit of extra work to get here today. So when we started work, it was a series of kind of parallel efforts. Facility assessment really a level set of where you're at right now and with your existing buildings. And then the facility master plan, which really is more future focusing, kind of what Nate had talked about in terms of setting the steps for the next kind of vision for your facilities. The facility assessments, we've got this up on the screen here, particularly the governmental center section. Our team went through the vast majority of city and county facilities, and so our team consisted of architects, interior designer, mechanical, electrical engineers, and it is a kind of a visual assessment of your existing facilities. So example, an interior designer would be walking through, would note worn carpet or walls that maybe needed painting or something like that, ceiling damage. Architect is going to be looking for accessibility needs. So American with Disability Act issues, door clearances, door hardware, bathroom access, just kind of noting those, along with more just kind of architectural elements, doorware, things like that. Mechanical and electrical engineers, they're the ones who are down running around in the basement, really looking at air handlers, chillers, your major infrastructure systems, electrical main gear, lighting, emergency power. So really kind of going through each facility, doing a walkthrough with the facilities team, hearing from them as well while we're going through, and then documenting all of those. And so we'll go through here with this list in just a minute, but at the end of that documentation, we've got a pretty long list of opportunities. And so then go through, we worked with Owen Ains Kimball out of Grand Rapids, a construction management firm. They provided us construction estimates that tied back to these individual projects. We really line itemed each piece. And that really is why the facility assessment report is several hundred pages long. So there's a lot of content there. Any questions about the process? Okay.
TJ,
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Andrews.
Thank you.
I saw it. Flag.
A question about, you didn't mention it, did you look at the structural integrity of the facilities when you were out there?
We did a visual inspection of structure. Structure is particularly difficult because a lot of times it's up above ceilings. We'll selectively poke above ceilings. If we see visual cracking in a building, we'll note it. But a full structural analysis was outside the scope of what we were doing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Flynn, did you have your hand up?
No.
All right. Anybody? City?
Okay.
Thank you.
So in the section of the report, this is pretty much boilerplate for each facility. Existing drawings, date it was built, nominal building area, site acreage, just all so you guys have this documented for your files moving forward. Another piece that was asked about was building energy use. So we also, Kelsey Grossbeck from our office, who directs our building science group, went through and did energy analyses of each building as well. So those energy data are provided by Kelsey. Just existing photos. Again, we wanted to document a lot of the things we saw. And then really getting into the facility assessment data. So our team goes through with a pretty involved spreadsheet. I'll try and zoom in on it here a little bit. And then really sections. So parking lots, quantity, condition, barrier-free parking, sometimes curbs and drainage. We didn't have comments on this one. And then really just line iteming all of these different sections. So anything from signage, site utilities, we didn't do a deep dive on this one. And then architectural, and it just kind of goes through with each one of those disciplines that we talked about. So we have ratings of good, fair, poor, and replace. So, you know, what does that mean? It's an opinion, a professional opinion by the team. Good, something's in good working order, good repair, no real action needed. Fair, it's in working condition. It, you know, there's no major issues, but it might be older, not necessarily end of useful life, but older, something to keep an eye on. Poor, something is at the end of useful life, not failing, or not necessarily an immediate chance of failure, but we still recommend to keep a very close eye on it with the potential, if you have budget available, maybe put it on the asset management plan for replacement or upgrade.
Mayor Shamrow, you have a question?
Yeah, and I can wait if you're getting to it, but I had a question about the like analysis of the parking lots. I know we had the giant report, but the quantity being rated as poor, I'm just curious how that was assessed specifically. I think there's times you can point to that lot that it's totally full, and then walking through at 9 a.m. this morning, there were tons of open spots. So I'm curious, is this kind of like we looked one day at one time, or was this based on feedback, or how did we arrive at that conclusion? How did you arrive at that conclusion?
It was, there was a day where we walked through, so, you know, it could have been a particularly full day that day. We've also heard some feedback in interviews that people have expressed sometimes having a hard time finding a place to park. Again, that does vary. It's the shopping mall. If you go after day after Thanksgiving versus probably today, you're gonna find different loadings. So that really, it could have just been a really busy day.
Thanks, that helps with our
Yeah.
assessment,
And
too.
I
Thank
and
you.
I don't remember the specific day they did the walkthroughs. It was a couple of years ago.
That's okay, we won't hold you to that much of a standard.
I have a question too.
Yes, Commissioner
Since
Saw.
we're talking about the parking lot, so drainage and stormwater was not evaluated or assessed, so all the costs we see in here, and I assume the options that we're going to be presented with, do not include any kind of stormwater drainage, because there's the Boardman River right there.
Yeah. Yeah, if we don't line item it, it wasn't included. So I'd have to go back down and look at the line item for the site, but I don't remember us talking about a complete redo of the stormwater for the parking specifically, no.
Anyone else?
So then, replace, kind of that last category. Those are things that are in our recommendation at end of useful life and potentially at a spot where it could fail. The challenge with failure is a boiler never fails at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday in August. It's 3 in the morning on a Sunday in February. And so the challenge with that is when those major systems do go down, you have collateral damage. Finishes can get damaged. You know, other equipment can be impaired. If you've got, we're going to see water lines running over electrical equipment, you know, later in the walkthrough, that could damage electrical equipment. So there's potential other things that could happen if something fails. And so that replace category really does recommend you should work on getting this taken care of as soon as possible. So I'm going to skip down here a little bit. Far. So then, yeah, you know, a lot of that then also includes photographic documentation. You know, our team goes through and does a pretty thorough job of, you know, categorizing various conditions, states of equipment. So then, really the main pieces, and we'll talk about those in just a minute, of some of the things we recommend getting immediate need. But then we also have, here's the bit I was looking for, the itemized budgets. And again, these are 2023 numbers. You know, the sheet that's got a little bit of escalation included with it, we are seeing, again, escalation and some market volatility. But then really going through and itemizing, you know, adding barrier-free parking, restriping, you know, as an example, is about $2,200 in 2023 dollars. And so we've gone through and identified all of those. Obviously, anything that, you know, is a major highlight, kind of six-figure numbers, accessibility, toilet rooms in particular. Anytime you're renovating a toilet room, it's a relatively expensive in terms of cost per square foot. There's a lot of infrastructure. The materials are usually a little more durable, harder to demo, but then also when you're replacing, you still want to upgrade those with durable finishes that are going to last. So, you know, interior finishes in some, oh, you know, interior finishes, but there are some even larger, you know, seven-figure potential costs. And then sometimes, you know, based in the report, if something is included in a larger number, that's where you'll see the priced above comment.
I have a question.
Sure.
Obviously, the lack of toilets on the first floor has been a long-term problem. I see that you estimate about 376,000, give or take, to do that. Did that number come with a plan for how that would, where that would go and how did you come up with that number, I guess?
That would,
conceptually, you don't have to like.
Yeah, it's basically a cost per square foot number. So we look at a potential square footage of a single-use restroom is about, you know, 100 square feet, plus minus about 70 square feet. And And if you were to do 2 locations, right, so one of the things we talked about with restrooms on the first floor in particular, ideally a staff side restroom and a public-facing restroom. So that's where you'd end up with a couple hundred square feet, and then that cost per square foot is where you would get that. As far as location, we did some high-level testing, but we didn't really do a deep dive with the facility assessment about where they might go. We just identified them. So I did want to call attention to, in particular, the air handler or the air handling unit and the chiller unit mechanically. Those are very large costs, obviously, and that cost basically includes all of the trade work that would be associated with, taking the existing equipment out, putting the new equipment in, hooking it up. It does get you those costs as well. But again, those are nominal kind of 7-figure numbers. And if those go down, operationally, it does have a very large impact on how you guys do business in the building. So we'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute as well. And so kind of bottom line at the time in 23, and Chris has provided some updated numbers as well. What we've seen since about 23 is 10 to 15% escalation currently. So we've escalated those numbers. You're at about 10.1 in current dollars. We think would be a budget number that would take all of the recommended facility assessment work and upgrade this building. So it doesn't operationally change how the building works. So departments would all largely be in the same location. There might be finish upgrades, but not necessarily extensive reorganization of how those groups work. But it does get you a building that probably works pretty well for the next 30 years in terms of investment and operation. Any additional questions on that?
Please carry on.
Great. Have John come over, and he's got more highlights to share as well.
I do have a quick follow-up question.
Sure.
On the windows, it looked like that was covered under the basement finishes, interior finishes basement, 667,000. I'm just not as familiar with what it means to replace exterior storefront. Does that mean the entire window is replaced, or is that part of the window?
That's the piece of aluminum you would see. So that would be frame and glass caulked. So it would take your existing windows, some of them are leaking, take those units out, replace it with a new glass, new frame, and sealed. So it would be a 1-for-1 replacement, and then would tighten up the envelope.
And that it was, the 667 was for all 4 floors, I believe?
I believe that's...
I thought so, too.
Look under the lower sections here. Yep, priced above, so, yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, somewhat of a follow-on to that
Sure.
question. Is there an estimate someplace, building envelope, so window replacement, HVAC upgrades, cost savings on utilities in the coming decades?
That would provide cost savings, a full building envelope re-insulation of the exterior, patching. I need to go back and dig through the numbers specifically to see if we identified it, but anytime you're upgrading mechanical, we always ideally recommend upgrading building envelope if you can, because that gets you best return on your investment. The mechanical system will be more efficient. It will cost less money and energy to run. If your envelope is tightened and is more efficient, it increases the value of that investment in your mechanical system.
I guess I get that. My question is there even a back-of-the-envelope estimate of what that savings might be?
I don't have it.
Not yet.
I can
Okay. No,
get
that's
back
fine.
to you
I
on
just,
it.
thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Sure.
Commissioner Nelson, go ahead.
Your thing here, is that supposed to match the one that we've got in our packet? Because that $8 million figure at the bottom is not on the one in my packet.
It's on the last page in the packet, under Governmental Center, 8,008,
I don't have it unless I've got was there an updated?
no, it's on page 19 of 19.
I don't have a 19 of 19, except for there's a different graph there.
Yeah, there's a graph that's marked A, B, C, D, E, F, G on the first column.
Right, but
S.
on his there, scroll down on yours that you have.
So he's got the full report, and we've got an excerpt.
Okay, so in other words, this doesn't match what we have in our packet, because I hadn't seen the $8 million figure when I was looking ahead of time.
The
So
$8
this
million
won't match,
figure is in our packet.
but not like this here. This doesn't
Correct, it
match
is not
what's-
like this here.
That was my question. This doesn't match what's in here.
This is the,
I was looking to see if I had an updated or a outdated.
I think you guys have the updated kind of, yeah, the condensed,
Yeah.
the condensed
Yeah, on
version.
the last page it has a summation, but I was questioning because they were different.
Oh, yeah,
Sometimes,
yep.
sometimes there's a new one that comes out and I didn't see it.
And this is the one that was published early last year, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. I'll have John talk through some of the specifics.
Thank you, Ryan. So, for everybody's reference, John Chase, Parks and Facilities Director for Grand Traverse County. So just a few things that we've updated since this building or since the Facilities Master Plan was created, that we've either experienced or upgraded or planned to upgrade. So as you're aware, I'll talk to kind of some of the downsides here. As you're aware, last year we experienced a couple of HVAC events that did cause us to close the building down. Those were repairable events, but we are seeing more repairs and trickier repairs with the system just due to its age. So that age did increase the challenge of making those repairs for that last time. One thing that we've also seen that's a continuation of what was mentioned in the Facilities Master Plan. You had mentioned parking earlier and asked a question about the parking. The parking lot surface continues to degrade. Its condition is alligator, so you'll see all that kind of alligator skin looking. You'll see that in a lot of spots, and we've also seen an increase in the number of potholes that have appeared, and that just causes more and more repair for that surface. That's not specifically referring to the underlying stormwater retention in that. I'm just talking about the surface of it. On the plus side, there are a few things that we've been able to do to get this building, keep it running. One is building management systems. So there's reference in the Facilities Master Plan for a $325,000 spend for building management system. That's for the entire building management system, which basically involves the front end that gives us the ability to control all the controllers or manage the controllers, and then the back end is all the controllers themselves that are placed throughout the building that control the room terminal level equipment, so the valve boxes in the ceiling and everything else. We've been able to replace the server that allows us to see that and make those controls. That was done this year under our capital improvement plan, and we also replaced what's called the JACE controller that assists with that process. And then one other item that we've done for this building is at our last Board of Commissioners meeting, we approved the addition or replacement of the chiller. So the chiller system in this basement is something that we'll have an opportunity to see when we go through the tour. And you'll see some of the challenges with that, but one of the biggest challenges is that chiller system is an open loop system that draws from a well, and it ejects water when it's finished out to the river. And that just isn't something that we can continue to do. So we are planning to replace that this fall.
So understanding that a few of you have to leave shortly, we'd like to now turn to some options and recommended next steps that have been developed by both the city management and county administration.
Take one, pass it down.
So what is being handed out to you, again, this is something that staff developed over the last few days. So unfortunately, we didn't have time to get this in the packet, but we'll make sure that the packet is updated and this is included. basically, we wanted to identify 3 options for both the City Commission and the Board of Commissioners to consider. And I will just indicate for the record that we, as Ryan indicated, we did include a 15% escalation cost. We also wanted to just call out that the facilities master plan is based on a series of concepts. And if we do move in future phases of development, which would include design and construction, please anticipate that those costs could also increase then as well. So what you have is a chart showing what are broadly speaking three options available. One would be renovation, a modernization of this space. And there is detail in the facilities master plan of what modernization means and what that could look like. The second option would be address the deficiencies identified in the facilities assessment, which does modernize your infrastructure but does not address the operational inefficiencies with this building. And the third option to consider is, does this space that we're sitting on, could it be used for other purposes to meet community needs? Could this space be vacated by both city and county? And could we look at what else this 4 acres, this building, this parking lot could be repurposed for, redeveloped to be? And again, the goal would be, what are the community needs we could meet in that type of project? Included also at the bottom are suggested next steps. Ryan will produce a summary of this meeting to provide to us. And then, as Nate indicated at the start, we, by intergovernmental agreement, have a joint building commission that is composed of the mayor, city manager, board chair, and county administrator. That commission should be the forum in which these options, next steps, are further fleshed out. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions. We're also happy to dive deeper into the issue of the chiller, when that will be installed, and the cost-sharing arrangements.
Mayor Shamro.
Yes, can I ask, and I apologize, for some reason my iPad is only loading through page 5, so maybe this is later and I'm forgetting and missing it. But when it's on option 2, address deficiencies, are we qualifying deficiencies as fair, poor, and lower, or as poor and lower? Because I see the number, but I'm not exactly sure what's encompassed in that number.
Question.
And yeah, that's a replacement of pour and replace.
Okay.
Anything that's in a fair position, you know, when we're developing the actual design documents to do that work, you can go through kind of item by item, and if it provides good value, we might recommend, you know, there's ways mechanically we can deal with that with the drawings, bid alternates, things like that. And maybe there's opportunities to address some of those as well, but it would really focus a lot on the pour and replace.
Thank you.
Sure.
Tim? Nope,
Yeah,
sorry.
in
No,
the
you're fine. Please do.
30 million plus option, and under the comments, increased footprint of the building.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard anything said about that, so how much, either of the 30 million, or is there a rough estimate of increased footprint? Like, what are we thinking?
So that would basically be a complete gut reno of the structure. So we would take it down to the bones, redo the building. New operational planning, new infrastructure, everything in the facility assessment would also be included in that number. The additional square footage is the first floor. So there's kind of a colonnade on the first floor that goes around the building. Structurally, it's space that you could capture and utilize for program. The other advantage is on the first floor, we talked about no restrooms currently. There's not a lot of conference and collaboration space on the first floor. There'd be security opportunities to reorganize how the first floor functions. That additional square footage and capturing that is a relatively, you're not building new square footage, you're kind of capturing structured area already, so it's kind of a high value return for enclosing that space. And if we're already doing a complete, kind of reskin of the building, you just bring those walls down and capture that space at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Commissioner, go ahead.
Go two at once, so we'll go Anderson and then Shaw.
Sure.
Thank you. Is there anyone on the task force who's looking at this from a capacity standpoint, an operational standpoint, whether we, and, we're talking about timeframes, I've heard 10 years, I've heard 30 years. Who's doing that forward-thinking planning of how we operate, how we work, and what that means in terms of capacity?
So the facility master plan report is a 10-year look ahead. And so that's really where that document comes from. The operational piece is really something that we've talked with your teams. We've gone through and talked with every department internally. And so they've shared ideas about how they would improve their processes. And we provided basically planning block square footage to accommodate that. But we haven't done a deep dive into, Ryan's going to be sitting here, Chris is going to be sitting there, anything like that. That's really that next design step.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Shaw?
In option number 3, you're just talking about the governmental center and the parking lot, not the rest of the campus, not the jail, not the courthouse?
Correct.
Okay.
Good question. Is there an option where under 3, the building is retained, but just the parking lot, the building is retained and renovated, and then the parking lot is used for commercial development?
That certainly could be, a sub-option, yeah. The one piece with that would be you would still need to find a way to offset the lost parking just for building operation.
But
yeah.
that's covered already under the facilities plan where I think it's section H would be the new parking lot.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I just a little more detail. The 2024 Facilities Master Plan is really a continuation of past planning efforts. In prior years, it was led by the County Planning Department, and so we do have concepts on file showing the governmental center remaining, but yet you could have, say, a mixed-use development in the parking lot. And those concepts go back to 1998 is what we could find in our files.
County Planning Department.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, I want to add a little bit of context. Commissioner Anderson, your question is right on point. So from the county perspective, that is exactly what administration is doing. We are looking at our operations spread over 37 different buildings and facilities, and we are trying to say, how do we expand appropriately and responsibly, and yet manage our current costs at the same time. John gave you the reference for the chiller. I'd like to tell you that this building alone, from our capital improvement fund for 25, $661,000. We are planning on paying to have this building repaired or maintained just on the capital improvement side of things. And the city's cost is $158,000 of that total. We're looking at other buildings as well that we're dumping money into. Our jail, the law enforcement center. The jail, as you know, is a topic of conversation that the Board of Commissioners for the county is currently entertaining. And what we're looking at is operational efficiencies and how do we make it all work. And if we stay here, we have to do something. This building was built in 1978 or 1979. The bathrooms are original, the chiller is original, the HVAC unit's original. I was 9. So I don't know what the right answer is, but what we need to have is this discussion. There is a way that we could re-envision this campus. John and I were fortunate enough to have a tour down in Royal Oak, and Royal Oak did exactly that. They envisioned their campus back in 2017, 2018, and they said, we want to stay here, but we want to do something different. We want to look different and build so that we can meet what our needs and our capacity going forward for decades. So they re-envisioned their campus. They built a building, they took a building down. They built a building, they took a building down. And then they added Henry Ford Hospital and a parking garage on that campus to help pay for debt service. Well, that's, in my way of thinking, that's a fantastic way to approach that. A public partner or private partnership that deals with debt service and meeting the needs of the community all at the same time. We could do that here. But the reality is the county is growing. The county is outgrowing the space we have in this building, and we need to address it. Our staff have spoken to Tower Pinkster. We have Cunningham Blimp in the building as well. They've had discussions with our staff, and the needs that our staff has far supersede this facility. So we need to have this discussion. It's very important to have a public discussion about what's next. What do we see for future relationships between the city and county? Do we want to maintain that footprint in this building? And if not, how do we go about it? The city, you have the same needs, and I know you're looking at those.
I'm sorry, can I ask a quick question as we talk about the collaboration? And not indicative of where I think we're going, but just to have the kind of, we're going here from like absolute kind of pie in the sky, 32 million plus, to nothing, and we're all going to leave soon. In our options here, what within the county what in the county functions are required to be in the county seat, which is the city of Traverse City? Just kind of, that's, to me, that's our base of, you know, let's say we all decide we just want to walk away from this building and everyone wants to do their own thing. We still have a little bit of required collaboration, and I'm just curious where we're starting at that level. I'm not advocating for it, though. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, it is the elected officials. The countywide elected officials have to have a seat in the city. There are options, though, that are current within the state of Michigan where that's not the case, that there's a small footprint in the county seat, and then there's other larger branches outside of the county seat.
So sheriff, drain commission.
I could just elaborate a little on that. The law says you have to maintain your public office or your principal office. So there is a distinction between principal place of business, principal office. Now, I'm not saying we completely move up to Lafreniere. Per law, we have to have a presence here, and as Nate indicated, it is primarily your elected officials. But there are models where the principal business is done outside the county seat, and yet there's a principal office in the county seat.
Okay.
Well, the other option is to take a vote to the people to move the county seat, which Leelanau County did several years ago when they moved. So that's an option as well.
Is there a concept where we could envision that the offices that are on the main floor of this building, which is the county treasurer, register of deeds, and clerk, use about half of the main floor, give or take? They are arguably required to keep that footprint or something on scale of that in the city. Let's assume, for the sake of discussion, that the county decides to build a jail somewhere on this campus, and that it is a collaborative building that is shared with the city police department, the county police, sheriff, and Michigan State Police, and the prosecutor. So the sheriff is therefore located here. I believe that would satisfy this requirement under state law that our county be here. Whether there's a cubicle for the county commission, I don't even know that the county commission has to have a presence whatsoever. So those 4 electeds plus
Drain commission, right?
Drain commission.
I know.
Drain commission's not
Poor
even.
Andy, we forget about him.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah.
I don't know if he would even prefer to be here. 'Cause
No, I get that. I wasn't trying to get into pushing people off the property or not being collaborative, but more of just that sense that, you know, I do, like TJ just said, you know, having the register of deeds and certain things with the city residents, our county taxpayers as well, that's why we're all here together, and having that all there for people to be able to easily move and find the records they need within one space makes sense. So as we look forward, though, I think that's just something to keep in mind, whatever options we start exploring, that there is a certain amount of collaboration that I think benefits all of us as taxpayers, that I want to make sure we're keeping an eye on and keeping that in mind.
So everything's on the table. So we have talked internally about the decades-old plan to have a facility between the courthouses adjacent to Washington. You know, we could build a facility there that would include a jail, that would include space for the sheriff and the city police, that would include space for elected officials that have to stay within the city or city-county administration. That is something that we have already envisioned. We've talked about the advantages and disadvantages of that, and there are not a lot of either, actually. We've lived in this skin since 1979. It was visioned then by Ross Childs, and I don't know who the mayor was at the time, but they had this vision of a collaborative effort to provide governmental services to their citizens. It works great. It's just not new. It doesn't have the best skin. It doesn't have best practices in place. We don't have security necessarily. We don't have an elevator that works. We don't have toilets that we can flush. We have a chiller that's pumping rust water through our systems and dumping it into the river. That is not 2025, and it sure isn't 2050. So when we listen to our staff and what they want and what they need, that's what we're trying to get to. And this is really the first step for us to have a collaborative discussion about what can we look like going forward. We all know that it's a big bill. These are big dollars that we're talking about, but this building has not been touched since 1979. There was a remodel to move the courts, the district court, but since then it's not been touched. So here we are. There's a question.
Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you. I feel like we've, of the options on this handed out, we've looked at number one, we've looked at number two, we put some numbers on it. We haven't spent a lot of time looking at number three, at least publicly. I think that's where we should first concentrate now. How does it look? Do that 30,000-foot view and envision if we're not starting over, but if we were starting over, how would we set this up? How does it work with the collaborative between the city and the county? And do we move some of our, do we move some of the services or some of the people to the administration move? How does that all look? We've got Lafreniere campus, like you said, we're in 37 buildings, we're all over. I'd like to go at that 30,000-foot view and really kind of come up with some concepts here that we think might work. I mean, it's not the sky is a limit. That's not my point. But how would this work more efficiency? You've got employees at all these different locations, and then we can maybe drill down. Maybe this becomes a law enforcement center. Maybe Lafreniere becomes where administration is, and we keep some of the stuff here in the county seat. But I'd like to explore that as a group, all of us together, and see if we can't come up with some creative, you talked about some private-public partnership. That could work very, very well. We've got a nice, I'm looking at the footprint of this space here. We have room to do a lot of different things. And I'd like to get some creative juice on this. And I know that's harder. It seems like I'm backing up and saying, no, let's not focus. We've done the first two. Let's work on the other one and just see.
Commissioner Walter.
I agree. I feel like we need one of those felt boards where you stick the rectangles on and you move them all around. Because right now it's just like floating out there, and we can't really wrap our heads around what that looks like. Like, what are all the individual pieces? What are the actual constraints and what are the perceived constraints? Who wants to work together? Who needs to work together? Like a more visual concept, including options like Woodmere. What are the options at Woodmere? What are the options at Lafreniere? And I know you're working on all this, but and what are the options here? What other, potential property is there? Is it West Front Street? Is it, out there to look at all of the options to then be able to do the felt board where you move it all around? And then, money too, but that's another thing.
The money thing.
The money.
The money thing.
Well, following up with that, what would a perfect picture look like if you didn't have anything here? What would you actually do, and can you make that happen with what we have? That would be my vision or voice, if that's possible.
I think it is possible, but I'm not creative, so I can't.
You're not creative?
Draw it for you. But a concept that we had discussed is the fact you could have a governmental center between the courthouses. You have a parking garage between, or on this side of the courts and the jail and the sheriff's office. You demo this building, and you could have, and I think the DDA actually had, or was it county planning? County planning had envisioned years ago having 3 stories adjacent to 8th Street where our parking lot is, where you could have first floor retail and 2 stories of affordable housing. That's your public-private partnership. And you could have a park along the river, you could have space, and this building would just not be here. But in order for us to get there, I don't know who asked the question, we have to talk about the building agreement, because right now, we are 50-50 owners, and it's worked very well, but who makes the decisions going forward on this? And how do we get those decisions done?
Commissioner Nelson.
So as we're looking at the renovating of this building, no matter how much money we put into this, we have renovated an old building, and we are looking 50 to 75 years out. So that is my concern with spending a bunch of money here. Yeah, you can totally gut it and start over, but it's going to have to take a big, huge amount of money, and then you have a renovated old building. So I want to remind us, I mean, we're sharing this building right now, but I have concerns. Anytime you do a remodel, you're doing it twice, because you're paying to undo and then you're paying to redo. That gets very expensive very quickly, where if you build a new building with the future in mind, quite often, as some of us have found out very painfully, sometimes that's better in the long run.
Lisa, anything? No?
I'll throw out a provocative comment.
Shocker. Go for it.
I'll just say that my initial, and haven't yet been convinced otherwise, that my preference is that our county administration, IT, and HR, which is basically the 3rd floor of this building, would be better located at Lafreniere. That's my starting point position in terms of things that I think would improve county operations. I think having the bulk of our staff in one place makes sense. And I recognize that would sort of island the clerk, the Register of Deeds, and the treasurer, but frankly, that's not inappropriate considering they are independent elected officials and we oversee their budget. Same at the courthouse. We don't have somebody in their office, right? They're out there doing their own thing. So I think from a county operations perspective, cost aside, facilities aside, just conceptually, I would be open to seeing how can we move administration, IT, and HR, which is administration over there.
Well, I see Liz has got something to say.
Sorry.
So before you get there, Liz, I would disagree. I think the court would disagree with your statement on IT. They need IT every day. So before we do any of that, really what we need to decide is, and Mr. Elgin, I'm sure Ms. Vogel's going to say the same thing, is like if the city and county are going to stay together, we're going to move apart, at least geographically speaking. That's really the first decision starts, probably before any of this starts. Because to Commissioner Nelson's point, we're going to put a bunch of money in the building and then we're going to talk about knocking it down. There is a difference between we have to do day-to-day things to maintain a building. The chiller is a classic example. That is a need. If we're going to be in this building tomorrow or next year, you got to put a chiller in it. Eagle has said, fix the chiller. They weren't asking, they were telling. So we did it. Having been said, are we going to spend $1 million? Because I'm going to guess it's going to be $1 million to fix the windows in this building. Well, are we? I don't know. But that's the first conversation we have, and that's hence why we're here today. So sorry about my diatribe there. Ms. Vogel, please.
Thank you, Chairman Seifert. Actually, that was an excellent segue to the chiller. So at your last county commission meeting, you approved, I believe, a not to exceed $482,000 to replace the chiller that's downstairs. That's the one that's covered in rust. And so the city has a proportion of that responsibility, and I think it's around that 24% mark, which is roughly $115,000. And so for a cost share of that nature, this is new to me. I wasn't sure if this would come back to the city commission, can show the bid that was approved by the county commission for approval or through a budget amendment process, which would be a different approval process, but I'm looking for direction from the city because, again, as these larger costs come up, we own the building 50-50, but we also have a cost share arrangement that we have to discuss and make sure that the city commission is also making those proper approvals.
And that's a clarification point that I did ask, and we were kind of tossing around yesterday, is the city's portion of that, of any of the repairs, I thought I had heard at one point it was 50/50, but I know we have 26% share. So is it the 26% that we pay of the repairs? That's what I thought. And so, as that decision's been made, the other question was, due to the facilities agreement, is that, and as we see here in rankings, the county is the hierarchy over the city. So now that you all have approved that, is that part of our facility study is basically, we're in for 26% now, or is that come to us and the process could be held up, or how does that work within our agreement, is my question.
So what the intergovernmental agreement says is that the ownership is tenants by common, which means we're joint owners. So we have equal say in the future of the building, where the county's role is the fiduciary. So we have the facility staff, we budget, and then typical projects are invoiced from county finance to city finance. What Liz and I talked about was, this is a big ticket item. It's not your typical projects we've done in the past at this building. So we really need to spend some time to figure out what is the correct mechanism to cost share this. Is it just Dean Bott invoicing Heidi Sheppy, or is there additional approvals by the city commission needed?
So what I'm hearing is we still have to iron that whole process out in general. Okay.
I think we do, and if I recall correctly, I sat in at the latter half of the county commission meeting. I don't know that you had anticipated making that decision at that meeting. There was a recess, then you got the bid. So I think moving forward, we should work out, and I think the building committee is a good way to do that, to say, how can we make sure that these land on the respective commission agendas relatively near each other with the same communications, probably signed off by me and Nate, so that everyone's getting the same information at the same time. I understand the reason why the commission moved forward with some cost-saving issues and some time-sensitive issues, so that made sense. But yeah, we should iron these things out, because these are, even the bare minimum repairs to keep this building going are going to be expensive.
Sounds like the elevator would be your next opportunity to iron those things out.
The elevator's definitely an opportunity.
Elevators are, yes, we like talking about elevators, but yeah, no, elevators are proved to be very expensive repairs. Whether they be old or new, elevators are very expensive.
Is that still not
Well, I
working?
understand it's been broken for a month, so.
Or more, yeah. And that I do have a question about, actually, since it was brought up. And actually, John, you might be able to answer anyways. At what point, because again, there's no bathrooms on the first floor. I know we have an elevator in the back, but it's not exactly user-friendly as far as people knowing it's there and using it. So are we still at least within ADA compliance with that service? And do we, is it because of the size of the building, we're supposed to be a little bit more accessible?
So thank you for the question. So we are still within ADA compliance because we do have a working elevator. The hoist ropes, which are technically cables in the elevator, in this particular front elevator, those were found to be bad. So elevator was closed for that emergency repair. They had to get the hoist ropes, had to get the permitting. I talked to Otis, I talked to them regularly and say, when is this going to be finished? And they said that today or tomorrow they will be able to start on that project. It'll take a few days to be able to get that project done. So I continue to work with them on getting that one taken care of.
Okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Back to the comments by the vice chair, just a clarification for my part to better understand. So third floor staff, moving them out, are you more specifically in favor of moving staff to Lafreniere, or just out of that space so it's still the possibility of a new construction on this campus?
My perspective is that the concept would be to move them to Lafreniere so that they are consolidated with most of the rest of county staff that they support and oversee.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's some dissension there.
Commissioner Nelson.
And I'll disagree with you on one thing you said, is that that's controversial or what
Provocative.
was provocative. I would say that's not provocative. I think it's kind of a good common sense starting point, and then you try to work from there. That's kind of where I'm trying to go. The point of this is not to separate ourselves from the city, but to make ourselves efficient and then work with you guys to make yourself also efficient. And so that's what I mean by starting at a higher level. I think that what you say is kind of makes sense to start with. Let's see if that works. We might get down the road and say that it's not going to happen. It's going to be too expensive. It's going to, for several reasons. But say, just for example, this building were to stay, we vacated the third floor, went to Lafreniere, that opens up this third floor to be remodeled for many different things. Maybe it becomes a law enforcement center. Maybe it becomes whatever. So
Prosecutor's office or
yeah,
something.
I mean, I think it's like your image. I picture the same thing. It's a big shell game. We're kind of moving things around, but starting with what do we need? What are our goals? And then we kind of go from there. Like I say with the jail, I don't want to build a jail and then look what the program is. I want to look at what the program is and then build the jail based on that. So I think we need to do the same thing.
And I guess that's where I would say that this is the start of a conversation. This is the start of the conversation. We have some choices here that have been laid out, and I think this is where we get to kind of have at least some numbers and some ideas of where we're all going now that we've had this study. But as we've mentioned, I think I think there's a lot of consensus amongst the public that keeping Register of Deeds and clerk and others together with ours makes a lot of sense. I've also heard over the years many, many times that there seems to be a lot of consensus that having our detectives work together between the Sheriff's Office and the TCPD has been a really good collaboration and process. So how that goes, though, I know that would, depending on how that goes, would maybe be a millage for a new jail or other things that would ultimately come from you all as the county. And so I see there's still some I see this as there's still some moving pieces that we'd need to hone in on a little bit more. Obviously there's certain aspects that are completely under your purview, like IT now that we've separated, and that's something that you have the choice on. But I think that there's some moving pieces that would keep, I think myself at least, from saying definitively, I really think we're leaning in this direction or that direction. But we have started out this conversation up. So I wanted to also see if my commissioners here had any thoughts, or absorbing. Go ahead, Jackie.
I would like to advocate that we not only look at this, where are people located from an internal efficiency perspective, but also that we keep in mind our commitment to service to the public, and that while lots of our communication is being intermediated by technology, there's also a need for face-to-face accessibility. And as we're talking about which departments move where, I'd like to have that be part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of times the members of the public, they don't distinguish between the city and the county.
Right.
And I think if you talk to people downstairs, a lot of times someone goes to the city counter, nope, you got to go to the county. So I think that is important. I get asked all the time, how about your meeting tonight? And it's a Monday, and I'm like, oh, that's a different meeting.
Not ours.
Commissioner Henschel.
I want to thank Mayor Shamro for those comments, and I agree completely that having the collaboration with our law enforcement, the collaboration with the city and local officials, we do need to look towards capacity building, because within the lifetime of most of the people in this room, this county will be 200,000 people plus within our lifetimes. It's happening. It's growing leaps and bounds. The other thing we need to consider as we look forward is we are on the cusp of a second information age. In the past 20 months, AI has gone from a babbling toddler to, if you're using the advanced models now, it's a typical college professor. It's getting smarter faster, and we're going to see new ways that we haven't even thought of yet to provide services more efficiently to the public. So, it's kind of a visionary stage for us right now as we look to the future and how we're going to build capacity to serve 200,000+ people with the same infrastructure we have now. But I would suspect that it's going to take less square footage per citizen to provide the services we provide, and those services we haven't started to provide yet in the future. So there's a lot of question marks right now. And there's a lot of moving things. I remember back in 1999, a lot of us still had phones on the wall, and today those are gone. Well, we're going to see that much growth in half the time under the second information age, if you will, as things change and evolve. So the collaboration between law enforcement, a lot of counties don't have that. When we go to MAC and NACO and talk to other counties, there's this kind of two different towns within one town mentality. And I think Grand Traverse has been very successful in many ways because we don't have that so much, because we work together. Our law enforcement share a building, we share a jail, we share this building where most citizens will come and interface with their government. You know, most states don't have townships, but a lot of times people go to the wrong building and they get ping-ponged back and forth, road commission, township, county, and it's nice that here it's just, oh, it's just 10 feet away, right across the way.
Yeah. And I had Commissioner Treadwell and then Commissioner Shaw.
Echoing a lot of the recent comments, that it is important that we recognize the synergies that exist between, right now, we have the two bodies that both meet in this same room, beside the same chairs, but at different times of the week. When it's an issue of somebody walking in and they have a question for the county clerk, and then they realize that some aspect is actually handled by the city clerk, it is a simple matter of walking across the aisle. Similarly, for our law enforcement, having the sheriff's department and the police department in different sides of the same building makes it very easy to share records. Even if those records are digital, it is still easier to share them when they are physically in the same space. Also, having the jail right next to our courthouse means that it is very easy to do transfers. When somebody has a court appearance, they are just walked over to the next building.
Yeah, good point, Mitch. Heather?
Yeah, just to comment on the synergy that is existing between the sheriff's department or our detectives and the police. Where is that occurring in other areas? We should look and find those places. And where could it be working better, like maybe parks, if those were located in the same area? So to look around at that as we think about moving facilities.
Yeah, I'd say two very good points, sorry, that haven't been brought up yet by both of you. One is there room for more collaboration where we haven't yet? I think, you know, I know the staff works together a lot and probably can identify where they work together, but is there better opportunity? And to Mitch's point, I would also agree that one thing we haven't mentioned, but I do agree is a good thing, is much like having the document or the kind of process people like our clerks all in the same place, I think having our meeting spaces in the same place, to the point of, I know there's a meeting at 7 o'clock on Monday and I'm supposed to go to it. Maybe you're not even, you know, students or somebody knows an agenda item's up but isn't quite sure about how the government, you know, kind of gets parsed out. Having the meeting spaces in one space, I think, is also very important. And for times like this, when we are all working together. And so as we keep that in mind and as we have these discussions, I think that is also another very important one that we keep together, is our meeting spaces as well.
Comments or questions, anybody else? I agree. All right. Any more?
I'll
Commissioner Spence, please.
make a comment based on what I've heard this morning about the confusion that people have between what's the city and what's the county, which I hear a lot too. Is there a way we could color code in the meantime? I mean, this is going to take a while, whatever we decide to do. But in the meantime, could we color code county and city in this building as a way to brand ourselves? I mean, I know we want to work together, we want to build on the synergy, but maybe we could find something that coordinates and we could distinguish ourselves, county versus city. I think it might help people out.
Campus signage is marked as poor, so that's something we could definitely look at.
For sure.
White hats, black hats. Who gets the black
I
hat?
mean, it's
thinking
one
like
side
shades
of
of
the
blue and
building
green.
and the other side, but sounds
Not
like.
working.
Ms. Vogel.
Thank
I
you.
don't
Well,
know that
first of
color
all, I
is
just wanted to say
required.
thank you to both bodies to being receptive to this joint session. We haven't done something like this before, and we weren't sure what to expect, and obviously things have moved along a lot quicker than the time that we blocked off for, which is really nice. But I believe that administration from both county and city are looking for next steps, whether some of these items get referred back to the joint building committee. And I know Vice Chair Andrews has been attending those. Do we want to add another city commissioner to that that committee? And then I personally believe that this has been a really, really good dialogue. Is this something that when we have something to bring, the committee has to bring back, that we try to do something like this again in 6 months or something? Do we do it in the morning? Do we do it in the evening? I know so we're just looking for some feedback on what those next steps would be. Is that summarized?
Yeah, may I add context to that as well, just to give you an idea where we are with Project Alpha. It sounds as if our board is going to ultimately move at least the EOC 911 Center potentially to design and development. Once that happens, we're Cunningham, Limp, and PI Partners in Architecture will refine those costs, refine the designs, and then bring it back 9-10 weeks later for ultimate approval. We don't know what that is if that's going to occur at this point in time. But what that does is it moves our 911 center out of this building. Now, it's a year plus away, of course, but we're going to start seeing momentum. We're going to start seeing changes within this building and where our services land. So depending on the next 10 to 12 weeks, we're going to need to have some discussion. So Liz and I did speak about the Joint Building Commission, whether we should have this discussion at that level, or do we want to have an ad hoc? Do we want to have a joint group that sits down with staff, with Cunningham Limp, with Partners in Architecture and others to have this discussion going forward? Because it's a big discussion, and I don't know that Nate Elger and Liz Vogel, Chris Forsyth, John Chase, we need your help with input and all of it. So if you would entertain that, I think that would be helpful.
And the thought was the Joint Building Commission, because it's already established per an agreement and because it has oversight of this building, that seemed like a logical next step. But I'm very confident in that I don't know a whole lot of anything. So we are.
Can we quote you on that?
We are open to alternatives, whatever those may be. We did ask, though, that we try to work whatever way we go. We work diligently and quickly, just given that there are a lot of items that are indicated replace in the facilities assessment.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the Joint Building Commission taking the next step with this and bringing it back, and I would propose, to be fair, to have it at an evening city study session to balance it out and, continue to get more public comment on it as well and get a little more engagement. And maybe that's the next 60 days versus the next 90 days. So that would be whatever we're already in mid-May, so.
It'd be Cherry Festival.
After Cherry Festival. The next session next study session after Cherry Festival for the city.
I will agree with Commissioner Welter that I, too, feel confident in the Joint Building Committee to bring back recommendations.
And I'll just let our commissioners know I haven't had a lot of updates on it because we've only met twice since I was elected. But I do think that what we're talking about here would essentially be going through like the needed repairs and kind of identifying those and then bringing that back, I think would be the top priority. As far as the overall mission of where we're going larger, bigger picture, I don't think that's made just by the buildings. So I don't want anybody to think that this is going to be, 2 people in a room deciding for all 7 of us where we want to take this building in the future. But I think it would be 2 people in the room identifying what fires we're putting out first and bringing it to you all and giving you that bigger picture. So just to kind of add that context.
So where does the bigger picture discussion take place?
If that's still part of it, I think this is,
Session.
yeah,
in
the study
July.
session, yeah.
Well, I see the Joint Building Committee as the conduit for all of this discussion. And not only that, but about our partnerships moving forward in a building. Do we own the building together? Do we share the maintenance costs? Does the city own the building and the county rents the space? Does the county own the building and rent the space, and the city rents the space? I don't see the Joint Building Committee making those decisions. But
Exactly.
it's definitely the conduit saying, this is what we discussed. City portion votes on it, the county portion votes on it, we come back. I hate to say this, thanks for volunteering my afternoons.
Yep.
That I don't think the longer we take, the longer it's gonna take. So I know everybody's busy, and we all have jobs outside of this, but if we're gonna get any movement on this campus, it needs to be more often, not less often.
Agreed.
Like 45 days out at the max. Though I'm down for avoiding Cherry Festival.
Yes.
I do share I don't remember who said it, that since I've been going to the one building commission, maybe another city commissioner wants to join Commissioner Shamrow or Mayor Shamrow just for balance, just to
We could do that. I mean, you have your chair and vice chair, so my inclination would be to invite our pro tem, but just to keep that balance there, but we can certainly look at that and explore that as a body too, but that's kind of where we're at. So.
And then as the county, we just appointed an executive committee to the steering committee to evaluate the jail facilities. We envision that ultimately the steering committee is a very large group, but to get started with some scheduling and stuff, this is going to play into that, right? This is, they are dominoes, I guess, or however interrelated. So I don't think we're going to be able to we're not going to be able to navel gaze for the next 18 months about this issue because that's going to hold us other projects up. So I just share the sense of urgency because of the contingent decisions that are interrelated.
Absolutely.
Well, fantastic. Anything else from the group over there? Or over here? Let me get I think we're on the second public comment.
We are. Here, I got mine pretty much the same.
Thank you. Thank you. I depend upon you all so much.
So Mr. Chair, we wanted to do the building tour. Did you want to do public comment at this point and then do the building tour, or did you want to
I think
take a break?
I think it's
and do
appropriate that we do a public comment for the people who are sitting here, not
All right.
wait on us to come back from our tour, and we could just adjourn into the public tour. We just have to remember
That
that we don't
works.
talk about things.
That works for me.
Good. I had to hear that. So public comment. Please just line up at the podium behind Bruce.
Bruce Moore, East Bay Township. I'm in Commissioner Henschel's district. This comment is really directed at Cunningham Limp. In your surveys of buildings in the parking availability, you should include some survey of bicycle parking. In many facilities, that's not really an issue. In Traverse City and facilities that are in the flat part of the city, that is actually a major issue. Here at the Government Center, the hoop racks probably have between 50 and 100% utilization. The wheel bender rack is rarely used, but in any case, you should include some assessment of bicycle parking, especially in places that are easy to bicycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice, that's in a public comment, except for, I'm going to reiterate or shirt tail on that, though I'm not supposed to. Motorcycle parking, if you go out in the parking lot on a day that it's not raining, there's 4 or 5 motorcycles taking up car parking spaces. You could put 3 motorcycles or 4 motorcycles in 2 car parking spaces if you do it correctly. That would be something to consider. So having said that, anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Sweet, we're out. Thank you, everyone, for today. Take a 10-minute bathroom break, because there's so many of us, and we'll get on with the tour.
I want to know how bad that.
I've already done this.
So we'll meet back here for the tour?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.